a city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. The phone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And let me see, where do we start? You've got protests all over the Democrat National Convention in Chicago. Pro-Hamas protesters, pro-Israel protesters. The cops got sprayed with some sort of irritant yesterday. So far today, they're not in that bad of shape, but they're on deck. I'm looking at them. They're in riot gear, and they're trying to control the crowd. And that's the scene outside the perimeter of the DNC, the Democrat National Convention. And it's just so interesting to see how so many people are there with the keffiyeh on their head. There's a lot of support for Hamas, and it's all you see is like the police helmets and those keffiyehs in the crowd, and some members of the media obviously in between and all around trying to get the scoop on that. Patti LaBelle sang at the DNC, giving a performance. I also saw DJ Little John running around. I've heard John Legend is there, and a little bit later tonight, I think we're expected to have Barack Hussein Obama, the 44th president of the United States, right? No, yeah, 44th president, and his former first lady Michelle Obama is supposed to be there as well, addressing the crowd tonight, giving their glowing endorsement of Kamala Harris. Now, of course, Kamala Harris has a amnesty plan. It's almost like a secret amnesty plan on immigration as the borders are, that we'll get into a little bit later. We really want to unpack that maybe in the next hour. And there's something out there called a nude deep fake. There's a website or an app, I'll get into it a little bit later, but that allows people to put somebody's photo in there, and it creates a nude image of that person. Now, I guess this could be used as a novelty thing or as a blackmail thing or as a whatever kind of thing, right? There's probably a bunch of reasons. I don't know the legality of it, but we're going to find out with one of our guests a little bit later, because I saw this article and I thought, my goodness, that's nuts, right? I mean, that could be, I'm sure it's already out there. There's people that do that and make videos and put things out there. But if it's a publicly available thing, I've never seen one, right? This is the first I'm hearing of that. So I'm just thinking, imagine that happens. You've heard of people with revenge porn and whatnot. Now people can create fake, deep fake revenge photos and whatnot to get at people or even their political opponents. Who knows? So we're going to talk about that as well in a little bit. But let me see. I want to go over a couple of things because there's a few headlines I want to talk about before we get into the rest of the story, as the great Paul Harvey used to say. Matt Gaetz beat Kevin McCarthy's challenger in his primary in Florida. I mentioned that. Little John made a surprise. DJ Little John, he's a good rapper. He made his surprise appearance during the DNC roll call. And I wonder if we can get audio on that. Oh, good. We'll get to that then. And then we've got, let's see, the new Starbucks CEO is planning to do a super commute from California to Seattle each day. How about that for the Green New Deal? Ay, bendito. I tell you, this stuff gets better every day. The comedy kind of writes itself. And what's this other thing I want to see here? Hold on. Bear with me. Oh, by the way, I got a bunch of messages from people asking for how they could hear the show. So I guess these are new listeners that don't know. So I just want to remind you, you can catch any interview that may have called your attention. You can go to the website, richvaldez.com, richvaldez.com. That's Valdez with an S. And every interview we've done is on there. Every episode is on there. Just check it out. You could look in the description and see who the guests are. You could look at the title and see what the show is about, and you could find out exactly what's going on, because there was a lot of interest in that in the last since yesterday. So just wanted to mention that as well. All right. Now, other thing I wanted to talk about, J.D. Vance, he was beaten up on, figuratively speaking, beating up on Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear over some comments that he made that he's saying are disgusting regarding a family that was dealing with a rape, which is obviously horrible to deal with. And last night we talked about how Hamas rejected Biden's ceasefire deal. That, of course, did happen. And Pelosi finally admits that she was somewhat enthusiastic about forcing Biden out of the race. So that's that. And, of course, Kamala Harris has backed out of the Fox News debate. I think we heard that yesterday in the evening time, confirmed now. Good old Kamala Harris. Afraid to go at it with El Trompito in an unfamiliar place, right? Meanwhile, Trump did a CNN, did it with Biden. Trump went to the National Association of Black Journalists and got, tore up by a bunch of people. Yeah, but he took it. He took it, right? It didn't matter. He's willing to take it because that's the job as president. That's the job as mayor, as a school board member, which I have been one, right? That's the job. You're going to sometimes face the music. You're sometimes going to get a critique from people. That's just how that works. Whether you're in politics or not, that kind of works that way. So I don't understand her deal, but that is the story. And I feel like I'm overlooking something that is major here. Let me see. Bear with me, my friends. No, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. So let me tease a little bit of what's happening next. So we've got coming live from Chicago, one of the local elected officials. You may have seen him on TV. I saw him on TV just a little while ago. And he was complaining that, or I should say, I guess it was a complaint, that the Clinton Democrat is kind of non-existent in today's Democrat National Committee. And, of course, not non-existent at the Democrat National Convention either. And Alderman Raymond Lopez is scheduled to be with us coming up in a little bit. And this guy's an interesting guy. He's Hispanic. He's a Democrat. He's from the city of Chicago. He's an alderman there. And he has a few things that are critical to say of his own party. And he's going to join us here and give us the scoop on what's going on at the Democrat National Convention straight ahead. And we're also going to keep you up to speed on these protests. I've got the news on, looking at a live feed of what's going on in Chicago. And again, the cops are there. They're on deck. There was a march from the actual United or whatever airline arena it was to the Israeli consulate. However, the police locked down the consulate. And a little while ago, they had the whole convention on lockdown. And that was interesting, but didn't pan out to be anything, at least from the reports I've seen. So keep it locked, folks. There's a lot more to come. We're coming right back to continue our discussion on the Democrat National Convention with me, Rich Valdez, and our guest, Raymond Lopez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. Somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
right. But you're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I am thrilled to reaffirm Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee for President of the United States.
All right, and there you have it, the roll call ceremonially being done there because it was already done virtually. counting Kamala Harris, or as I like to call her, Kamala Harris, as the nominee for President of the United States for the Democrat Party at the Democrat National Convention. Now, we have a guest on the line, Alderman Raymond Lopez. He's a member of the City Council in Chicago. He is a Democrat. As I understand it, he identifies as a Clinton Democrat and feels like he's kind of a nomad in his party these days. Alderman Lopez, welcome, sir.
Rich, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm grateful that you come on. It's difficult to get Democrats on the program, believe it or not. A lot of times they don't like, and I don't give them a hard time, but they don't like to come on. So tell me a little bit about your experience so far at the DNC.
You know, I've tried to steer clear of what's going on at the Democratic National Convention because it seems as though my party and the Democrats as a whole are not interested in addressing concerns of the core Democratic constituencies of the last quarter century, African Americans, Latinos, and the Jewish community. It seems as though they're being all collectively left in the dust as the party shifts ever left, trying to out-crazy itself to win over the purple hair crowd and everyone who's on a new TikTok-driven mission to change the world. And I think that it really leaves a lot of us behind in ways that I think will have a profound impact politically for a generation.
You know, I'm so glad you said that because that's always my thought too, right? I feel that the media kind of exacerbates things. And I feel like I've been in politics. I worked for state government in New Jersey and have worked on campaigns and whatnot in addition to my broadcasting career, and probably going on 20 years. And in that time, I've been at many different functions where I am glad handing with fellow Democrats, right, with fellow Republicans, with independents, with all sorts of people. And it's never been an issue where like we hate each other and we want to kill people. But it seems like it's become that way because there is like you said, this blue-haired, purple-haired crowd, this extreme left within the party has really kind of defined the direction of the party and so much of what the party stands for in many ways, even though that's not, in my opinion, not really the makeup of the party, right? Here you are, a Hispanic politician from Chicago, and you said it really well. Your city's filled with Latinos. It's filled with African Americans. You have issues where you have existing Latinos, right? Americans, African Americans that are facing the plight of illegal immigrants coming in and causing chaos with crime, causing other problems with taking jobs. And I've seen these reports come out of the news. You have ongoing crime problems. And it doesn't seem like a party, your party, that says, let's defund the police and let's abolish ICE and open the border. Those things don't seem to help.
No, they don't. And I'll go even one further than that. Let's not forget, even as you look at the border crisis as it's arrived in our own backyards here in the city of Chicago, there are many tens of thousands of individuals here in the city of Chicago alone who are undocumented, who've been promised everything from DACA to legalization to amnesty by Democratic Party leaders for decades. People like Luis Gutierrez, Chuy Garcia, and others who said, don't worry, we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. And then lo and behold, as soon as Kamala Harris goes to the nearest Taco Bell at the border as her duties as a border czar, she decides to allow millions to come in through amnesty, or through seeking asylum, and to manipulate that process, which we clearly know is being manipulated. Everyone and their brother can see that these individuals are using a legal system to gain entry into the country under false pretenses. But what the Latino community sees, particularly the Mexican community, is that individuals who've been promised and have been waiting and have been loyal have been completely forgotten about. And that is a story that is replicating not just within the Latino communities, but also, as you mentioned, African-American communities that we know have always been asking for more investment, greater support, and recognition for the impact of generational racism from the South on up, and have constantly been told there's no money, there's no opportunity, there's no ability. And then in 3 short years, we've seen states like Illinois put up a collective $1.3 billion to help individuals who we want to call our new residents, all the while sending the message that we've completely forgotten about our old residents. And that's before we even get to one of our strongest constituencies, which is the Jewish community, as we are seeing so many of the Democratic Party and even Kamala herself now trying to pivot under the advice of her advisors to take a different approach than what President Joe Biden has done, and showing support for the pro-Hamas agitators who want to now be in charge of our foreign affairs in the Middle East.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a short clip of audio that I want to play for the audience, and I want you to hear it as well, that I really think is just it's very clearly defining what's really going on here and what's at the genesis of it. It's a protester and a reporter just outside of the convention just yesterday. Listen to this.
Every Palestinian support Hamas, not just me. Every Palestinian support Hamas.
Do you support October 7th?
Who?
October 7th.
October 7th? Yes, I do. What's wrong with October 7th? You tell me.
Women and children.
What?
The murder.
What is this?
Okay. What is this bleep? Right now, it doesn't end there. They continue, right? I mean, they go into this whole tirade about how they defend, and I'm not going to play all of it, but the defense is Hamas is the only one fighting against the Jews, so therefore we have to support them, as if the Jews did something wrong when they were the ones that got attacked.
And we see this not just with those individuals who believe that they're supporting their countrymen in a misguided way, but also in many of our American youth who clearly have no idea what's going on because they only get their news from social media, from TikTok, which is why the Democratic Convention is so obsessed with making sure that you have social media content creators there in the United Center for all 4 days, because they know that young voters 18 to 25 at minimum are not getting their news from mainstream media. They're not getting their news from other media sources like yourself. They're getting it off TikTok videos. So you need to be able to craft the message that they will click on and give a heart to if you want to make an impact. And clearly, they're not sharing the truth. And I've seen that firsthand when I was at a high school earlier this year talking to a group of seniors who were angry with me for not supporting the ceasefire resolution sponsored in City Council here. Because when I asked them, well, what happens to the hostages if you negotiate a ceasefire without addressing them first? Everyone gave me a blank stare. A room of 60 Chicago public school seniors gave me a blank stare and said, what hostages are you talking about? Those people were legally...
Who's holding hostages? Wow.
Right.
Unbelievable. Straight propaganda, right? People believe whatever they hear. And if that's all they hear, that's all they know. Folks, we're on with... Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was going to say, and this is something that, we've all been warned about in many of early American literature. I think it was, Fahrenheit 475, which talked about how you dumb down language to make it easier and easier for individuals to grasp less and less, quicker and quicker. And that's what we're seeing play out in real time right now.
That's such a shame that we're seeing that in the United States. Amigos, we're on with Raymond Lopez. He's alderman of the 15th Ward, City of Chicago. He's a Democrat, a proud Democrat, and he's calling him like he sees him. I'm glad he's here. We're going to come right back and continue the discussion with Alderman Raymond Lopez. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Your home for the best election coverage.
I have my choice. In my perfect world, every Republican is out of the country and all the immigrants come in. That's what I want. It's never going to happen. That's what I want.
But we're all immigrants. We all came from somewhere else.
Right. So.
Okay, there you have some of the protesters outside of the Democrat National Convention in Chicago. Our guest is Raymond Lopez. He is an alderman in the city of Chicago. He is a Democrat. Who is joining us to discuss some of the issues at hand. And Alderman Lopez, again, thanks for being with us tonight. When it comes to this particular convention, it seems from what I can see, I mean, the last convention was kind of like COVID, so it's kind of weird. But it seems very different than others, being that they weren't really voting from the floor like they have in the past. It was kind of predetermined, and maybe that's my own ignorance, but did that seem new to you, or is that always the case?
No, it's not always the case. And as somebody who went to the 2016 convention when we were nominating Hillary Clinton to become the first female president of the United States, I can say that definitely there was a different vibe, more energy, more excitement, because it was real and in real time. You know, what we've seen because of 2020 and because of some of the technical electoral mistakes and missteps that have been made along the way, you know, they had to basically confirm the nomination remotely. So you don't have that same kind of energy and buzz. And even though they're trying to reaffirm it and recreate it, some of that gets lost the second time around, as you know. And I think you can definitely feel that vibe in the room.
It seems that way. And the other thing I think that's interesting is, at least in my lifetime, I'm only 46, but I'd not seen this happen before, where there is a switcheroo of the candidates. And I'm not saying it's anything, there's no chicanery involved, but it is interesting how, you know, Biden himself was making the case for that right before they pushed him out and said, 14 million people voted for me. I'm not going anywhere. And then he was like, all right, I'm going somewhere. And it's just interesting to see how that happened. I mean, you're from Chicago. I'm born in Brooklyn, and I grew up in Jersey. Politics aren't that different than any of these states. And I've seen a lot of deals, backroom deals. People get pushed out of things all the time. People get knocked off for petition signatures, challenged, all that stuff. So I'm used to machine politics, but I'd not really seen it publicly at the presidential level. Have you?
You know, I have not, but I definitely know that we have never seen it done behind closed doors within a 4-day time span. Because even if there were an issue where the candidate could not continue, regardless of party, there are mechanisms in place to ensure that that is the point of these conventions, right? That a group of party leaders elected throughout the country are able to come together and make a decision. Generally speaking, conventions are just affirmations of whatever the popular vote was anyway. That's right. Why it was so interesting in 2016 when you had Bernie Sanders trying to make a play from the floor, even though Hillary Clinton was mopping him up at the ballot boxes. But in this case, all of that was kind of just brushed to the side, and you had delegates basically being asked to sign their votes away in advance of the convention, so that Kamala Harris could walk in as the nominee to avoid any kind of public spectacle of delegates and negotiation and deal making happening in front of the public.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and I think it's just fascinating that there was not so much of an emphasis on democracy, and it was just sloppy, like you said. It happened in a 4-day period. He said he wasn't going, then they got to drag them out kicking and screaming. Yeah. But it seemed to have coalesced really nicely.
Let's not forget the optics of that either, because this is the same party, my party, that kept saying we have to defend democracy, and here we jettison 14 million
exactly
votes.
What I'm thinking. Right. They're harping on democracy. Trump is the threat, and they're the ones doing it. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, it's very hypocritical and opens us up to all kinds of questions, which I think not so much on the Republican side, but for those middle-of-the-road Democrats who still believe in the party's core message, this really kind of makes people start wondering and second-guessing. And you don't need old-school Democrats second-guessing themselves, because I know where they will go next.
And that's really what I wanted to ask you was about that, because earlier, you've described yourself as a Clinton Democrat, and my thought is, I think there's plenty of you guys out there. I think there's a lot of Democrats still. Not every Democrat is AOC and Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, or even Kamala Harris, right? I think there's a lot of Raymond Lopez Democrats out there, and some of them may not be as vocal because they don't have the platform you do, or perhaps the experience that you do, but I think they share your values, right? They may not agree with me politically, but they probably agree with you politically. What happens right now to these people, or I guess really what's the sentiment? I know when you're that guy and you're outspoken and you have the courage to go on the conservative media outlets and share your story. I'm sure you get a little hate for that, of course, but I'm sure you also probably get a lot of accolades from people saying, thanks for speaking up for me. Is that something you're experiencing?
I mean, without question, every time I'm on shows like yours, I will have some of those who are of the same political party try to demonize or gaslight or take advantage of this as though I'm somehow some closet dino Democrat name only. Right. Even though I've probably been involved in Democratic politics longer than they've been alive. But the fact remains is that, yes, more than not, I will get more people, especially Democrats who, like you said, don't have a platform, don't feel they have a voice in this party, and then finally hear someone who sounds just like them. And that used to be what this party was, making sure there was a space for everyone to feel welcome, where they could have someone like them give a voice, whether it was a minority, whether it was a woman, whether it was somebody with disabilities. We were always a party of inclusion. And we've become the party of exclusion, where you have to pass every litmus test and support every ideology and dye your hair every single color if you want to be a part of this party. And that's not who we are. And more often than not, I get more invitations to join the GOP than I do to show up at Democratic events, because I am the unwelcome reminder of where we used to be, where the middle used to be, while everyone else is tripping over themselves to out-crazy the crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts. Folks, we're on with Alderman Raymond Lopez from the city of Chicago, a Democrat from the 15th Ward. And Alderman, I want you to stick with us. When we come back, I want to get a little bit of your background. I just want to know how you came up, how you got into politics, and I want people to really get to know who you are, because it's really been a pleasure speaking with you. Folks, we're coming right back with Alderman Raymond Lopez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The last time I was here in my hometown was to memorialize my mother, the woman who showed me the meaning of hard work and humility and decency, the woman who set my moral compass high and showed me the power of my own voice. Folks, I still feel her loss so profoundly.
That is Michelle Obama, former First Lady, addressing the crowd, reminiscing about her dearly departed mom. And again, she's a Chicagoan, and opening up, I'm presuming, for former President Barack Obama, who's expected to take the stage. And there were some rumors earlier that they were going to start this a lot earlier so that they would not be outside of prime time and on late night like me. But looks like they're screwed. It's almost 11 p.m. Eastern time, so that means it's almost 10 p.m. Chicago time. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to work out for them. But I want to come back to somebody else who's from Chicago, who's also a Democrat, who is our guest, Raymond Lopez. He's an alderman from the 15th Ward, Chicago City Council. And Alderman Lopez, again, thanks for being here tonight. Let's start real quick with this, because we heard Michelle Obama coming in. What is your expectation for the speeches given by Michelle and Barack Obama tonight?
You know, the former First Family are great orators. No one can take that away from them. And they know how to pull on the heartstrings better than most modern politicians that we see on TV or in action in the nation's capital and through capitals and halls of government throughout this country. And I think that they're going to play to their strength. They're going to try and remind people of the near universal love affair people had with Barack, Michelle, and his daughters, and try to evoke that same kind of spirit onto the Harris-Walz campaign. I don't know how well they're going to do on that regard, because I think that, she is no Obama. Kamala Harris is no Obama.
Definitely not.
He would speak, and I don't remember ever anyone saying that all that we were getting was a giant tossed word salad thrown at us.
Right.
He had a start, he had a middle, and he had an end, and it was finished, finite, and clear. Where, God help us, whatever comes out of Kamala's mouth, whatever she's talking about, more often than not, you're left scratching your heads, wondering, did she insult me? Did she love me? I have no idea what she just said.
Right. How'd she get this job? Yeah. Right. It's true. And well put. I agree. Anybody who served as an actual president better know how to give a speech really well. But I totally get your point and agree. I think that Kamala Harris is not going to measure up to whatever they deliver. Now, I wanted to get into your background a little bit, because I'm sure many of our listeners who either have never heard from you or have seen you perhaps on television, never really had a chance to hear about your story. And many of them are probably thinking, man, I wish all Democrats thought like this guy. Or this guy sounds more like us than he does like them. Tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you come from? Where'd your family come from? And how'd you get into politics?
I'm a third-generation American. Over 100 years ago, my great-grandfather came here bringing his family, at that time, his 3 children and his pregnant wife, to this country. And she eventually gave birth to my grandfather here. So I'm rooted in this city on the southwest side of Chicago, not far from Midway Airport. And I'm very intimately aware of the impact chasing the American dream has on so many across the planet, because that's what brought my family here. And I know how important that is to ensure that, we have these kind of avenues and pathways for people to do that. Growing up, I was a product of a divorced family. My grandparents basically raised me. I was a Catholic school kid growing up, not from a wealthy family. My family struggled to make sure that I got that education, but they made sure that it happened. Taught me values that are still with me today, of being responsible for my actions and doing the right thing, and all of those things that everyone seems to run from nowadays as they try to make excuses for all the bad behavior and blame everything except the person for their own actions. I had no real ambition to be in politics. No one in my family was ever in politics, and it was not something that was in my family, really. And as you know, just like being the first to go to college or the first to do anything, it really has to be in you. And thankfully, as I was growing up, a political operative in my neighborhood saw me kind of just standing around doing a whole lot of nothing and said, well, if you're going to stand around and walk around the neighborhood all day, why don't you do it with your precinct captain? So I did. And it turned out to be somebody who was working for, at that time, Congressman Bill Lipinski, who may be a name some of your listeners may know, more conservative Catholic Democrat from Chicago's southwest side, but also someone who was known for working across the aisle, legitimately across the aisle, to get things done. Because at the end of the day, that was from the time frame when Congress was actually about bringing funds, resources, and money back to their districts to help lift the lives up of their constituents, regardless if they were Democrat or Republican. Bringing home the bacon was something everyone can agree to. And I was hooked ever since. Ran for alderman in 2011 in a district that was overwhelmingly African-American. And if your listeners are unaware, a lot of politics in Chicago, being a one-party town, isn't based on political division. It's based on racial division. But I did it fairly well, considering, and ultimately ended up winning the same seat that I had initially ran for, representing large African-American communities as well as Latino communities, and being the first openly gay elected official in the city of Chicago, south of Madison Avenue on the south side. And I've never played to the race card. I've never played to the alphabet card. I've never played to the I'm the handsome guy. I just play to the, I'm going to get things done and work for you as if I were working for my own family. And it has served me well now 3 terms as alderman and 4 terms as a Democratic Party leader in the city of Chicago.
And you get to talk smack and do interviews wherever you want. And obviously they can't touch you because you've got the support of the people. And that's the best position to be in.
And you know what? And I always tell people, as we talk about why do I go on conservative shows or why do I go on this media or that media, I tell people quite plainly, I have never turned down any media's request. I don't believe in cherry picking who I want to be on and who I don't, because I don't think that was the spirit of freedom of the press, being able to ask questions. Everyone in the press should be able to ask questions, not just who you want to get a friendly audience with. I tell people that the problem you don't see me on with Anderson Cooper or Val Jones or Vance Jones is because they don't want me on the shows, because they don't want to have a balanced conversation where their narratives are evaporated by someone who actually lives with real Democrats who aren't the elitists trying to change the world, one vasectomy at a time.
one free vasectomy at a time.
One free vasectomy at a time.
Unbelievable. It was really a pleasure talking to you. I don't have a ton of time left, but I want to get a quick, yes or no from you. Do you think that Kamala Harris is going to be effectively able to distance herself from the Biden administration, even though it's the Biden-Harris administration?
No, I do not. And I think that, if Trump were smart, all he would have to do is tie the impact of the administration on its record, because she, as we often hear, cannot simply just say she's going to come in and fix things because you're fixing the problem. Then you're admitting that you guys are the ones that created problems, and she can't do that. You can't play incumbent and outsider at the same time. It doesn't work that way.
I'm thinking the same thing. You just can't run it as an outsider. Alderman Lopez, honestly, a pleasure speaking with you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having the courage and making the time to come and have this conversation. I think the audience appreciates it. All of our listeners on WLS in Chicago definitely appreciate it. And it really was a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Have a great night.
Godspeed. Bye-bye. All right, folks, we're coming right back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
My fellow Americans, when 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck, the top 1% have never, ever had it so good. And these oligarchs tell us we shouldn't tax the rich. The oligarchs tell us we shouldn't take on price gouging. We shouldn't expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and vision.
Now, who are these oligarchs is what I want to know. These oligarchs. Who are these oligarchs? Who is he talking about? The former president, Donald Trump, is the oligarch he's talking about? Is it Joe Biden? I don't know who these oligarchs are, but I can tell you that the purpose of government, the way I see it and the way Bernie Sanders sees it, are so diametrically opposed. It's ridiculous. I mean, he really thinks, he said 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Why do you think that is, sir? Which party's been in power for the last 3.5, almost 4 years? Your party, sir. Your party, the tax and spend crowd. Come on, man. Like Joe Biden says, come on, man. This guy's a clown. Anyway, folks, I'm coming right back. Rich Valdez, don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you. We're live. This is the Tuesday night edition of the program. Welcome. If you want to join us by phone, 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ is the number, and you're welcome to dial in and talk about what we're talking about. And if you want to talk about something else, call us at the top of the next hour for Open Phone America. And a couple of things that are happening. Let's see. There's a couple of headlines I wanted to share with you. Kamala Harris, that's what I call her. Kamala Harris has backed out of the Fox News debate. She is scared. She's afraid of debating Donald Trump on Fox News for whatever crazy, silly idea she's got going on there. Let's see. Elon Musk says he's willing to serve in a Trump administration. Maybe they'll make him the social media czar. That would be cool, right? Let's see. The Biden Department of Justice asked the Supreme Court of the United States to stop the state of Arizona from requiring proof of citizenship to vote in the 2024 election. Imagine that. Imagine the Department of Justice saying, no, you can't do that. Now, listen, I get it. I get their argument. I don't agree with it, but I get it. They're going to say it's a barrier to access this, and the things that they've been saying forever and a day. They've been doing this stuff for a long time. And, of course, it is night number 2 of the Democrat National Convention, and that's in progress right now, live in Chicago. We've got a live feed to it. Barack Obama just took the stage. Let's listen to him for a couple of seconds.
For all the incredible energy we've been able to generate over the last few weeks, for all the rallies and the memes, this will still be a tight race in a closely divided country, a country where too many Americans are still struggling, where a lot of Americans don't believe government can help. And as we gather here tonight, the people who will decide this election are asking a very simple question. Who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future, about my children's future, about our future together?
Well, it's certainly not Kamala Harris and Tiananmen Tim Walz, because all they can think about is keeping an open border, making sure that its government is the solution, right? Making sure people continue to pray at the altar of government, and that hasn't worked. She's talking about socialist price controls. Those haven't worked ever, and it seems like if they were that good of an idea, Mr. President, why didn't you put in socialist price controls, right? These are the questions I think we need to be asking of these folks. But he's up there. He looks sharp. He looks like $1 million. He sounds like $1 million. And he's gonna knock it out of the park with his base. Just like El Trompito does when he gets around his base. And President Trump was in Michigan at a rally, and he was talking about a couple of different things. One of the things he talked about is how important it is to make sure that we stop Kamala Harris from allowing people to come in unvetted, unchecked through the open border. Listen to this.
She has allowed millions of people, open border, to flow into our country totally unchecked, totally unvetted. And they come from jails and prisons, slightly different. They come from mental institutions, all over the world. This isn't just in South America. People think it's South America. It's from Africa, Asia, the Middle East. A lot of people coming from the Congo in Africa, the Congo. Rough. And they're prisoners. They're prisoners. And we say, where do you come from? Africa. Where in Africa? Prison. What did you do? We don't want to say. They turn out to be murderers. These are rough, These are rough people, and we're allowing them into our country from all over the world.
Again, that's President Trump at a campaign stop in Howell, Michigan, earlier today. And I want to get some reaction to that and the Democrats' plan, right? Because the Democrats have their own plan, right? Kamala Harris and the DNC platform, they're pledging to pass something called the U.S. Citizenship Act. And in reality, it's a pretty radical amnesty bill, right? It's a secret amnesty scheme, probably the worst that we've seen in modern history. And it's amnesty for everybody, including human traffickers, gang members. It won't have any welfare restrictions, so no public charge rules. And it will deport less people. And this is not good. So I want to get the scoop on this from someone who served President Trump as the former chief of policy at the United States Immigration and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Rob Law is the director of the America First Policy Institute's Center for Homeland Security and Immigration, and he's our guest. Rob Law, welcome back.
Oh, it's good to be with you this evening.
So let's talk a little bit about this, because the Democrats are there. They're beating the drum at the United Arena in Chicago. They're thrilled. They've got their fists up in the air right now. They're celebrating Barack Obama. He's celebrating Kamala Harris. And I don't know what they're celebrating, but this U.S. citizenship bill that you're talking about, the U.S. Citizenship Act, is it sounds like a disaster. Tell us more.
Well, you're absolutely right. And so what happened yesterday was the DNC, the Democrat National Committee, introduced their policy platform. So this is the policy document of the Harris-Walz administration, if that was to happen. And buried in this 80-something page document is a couple of pages that talk about immigration and border. And you hear a lot of rhetoric, oh, we're going to be tough on the border, blah, 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 all that stuff that you know is not true. But then you hear multiple references to the U.S. Citizenship Act. And that sounds all nice. And they tell you, oh, it's about legal immigration. No. This bill is the largest amnesty bill that has ever been introduced. It is so radical that not only does it allow criminal aliens, gang members, and human traffickers to receive amnesty and a path to U.S. citizenship, it actually requires the United States government to track down previously deported illegal aliens and bring them back to the United States so that they too can apply for amnesty. It is the epitome of America Last. I mean, it is so outrageous that it's hard for me to say this out loud, that this is actually what the proposal is for a serious, political situation for the Democrat Party. That's where they are today.
So what is the purpose? What is at least what are they saying, right? Under the cover of what would you get somebody that was deported and bring them back? What would the benefit be to this country?
Oh, there's no benefit to this country, but that's beside the point. The thing is, the Democrats today, they don't seem to care about what is good for the American people, and certainly not the American worker. It's more about who wants to come to the United States. And so the goal is you bring in as many people from other countries around the world who want to be here, and you're the party that let them in. You're the generous, you're the benevolent party. And so therefore, the calculus is that when they become voters and any children that they have, will vote for the party that allowed their family to be in the United States. At the end of the day, there's no calculation that says, is this good for the American people? Is this good for the American sovereignty? Is this good for the American worker? Because it's not. These are unpopular policies, which is why they buried the specifics of this. They only highlighted a very small portion of it. And it took, a handful of us to read through this document and say, hang on a second, there's more to it than this. Don't be fooled by this. This is not a moderate position. They're trying to run the same game that they did in 2020, where they painted Joe Biden as a moderate. Now they're trying to say that Kamala Harris is a moderate. No, this is the most outrageous, far left, radical immigration amnesty proposal ever introduced.
You know, Rob Law, this is, I mean, it comes as no surprise, and I totally understand what you're saying, but typically they will say something like, you know, we benefit from immigrants enrich our communities. I can't imagine them saying, you know, the benefit of going and getting somebody we've already kicked out and bringing them back, that's something I think they'd never be able to sell. And you're right, that's probably why they bury that stuff in the fine print, because I can't see how they sell it even to Democrats. I don't think even most Democrats would agree with something like this. Now, what is the likelihood of this becoming the lay of the land?
Well, certainly it would require both, you know, the House and the Senate to pass it, and then President Harris to sign it into law. So even here's what I'll say: even if it's that unlikely to become law, the fact that Kamala Harris is willing to put her political future behind this proposal tells you all you need to know. Because even if this cannot become law because it is so radical and it can't get the necessary votes, she's willing to put her neck on the line for the most radical amnesty bill ever. And if that doesn't become law, she's going to try to, you know, circumvent the law the way that the current Biden-Harris administration has circumvented the law. They'll use deferred action, they'll use parole, they'll use all these other elements of our immigration laws, create loopholes to allow illegal aliens into the country, give them work permits, social security numbers, driver's licenses, which enables them to end up on the voter rolls. So even if this proposal cannot become law, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's such an extreme proposal, and it has become this is the standard bearer of the Democrat Party, which now the standard flag bearer is Kamala Harris.
Folks, we're on with Rob Law, former policy chief at U.S. Immigration Services, and we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So when I return to the White House, we will stop the plunder, rape, slaughter, and destruction of our American suburbs, our cities and towns. And I think that women living in the suburbs, I keep hearing about the suburban woman doesn't like Trump. Well, I think it's a fake poll, because why would they like me? I keep the suburbs safe. I stopped low-income towers from rising right alongside of their house, and I'm keeping the illegal aliens away from the suburbs. I think that they like me a lot. I think it's a lot of fake polls. We've seen a lot of fake polls over the years. I was not supposed to win anything, and we won the big one. We won it and did a lot better the second time we did the first. But women want to have safety. They want to have a strong military. They want to have a strong police force. They want to be in their house, and they want to be safe. They don't want to have people pouring into their doors, and you can't do anything about it, right?
President Trump talking about safety, making sure we don't have an open border at his campaign stop today in Howell, Michigan. Again, we come back to our guest, Rob Law, former policy chief in the Trump administration for immigration. And Rob Law, when you hear President Trump talk about this, I think he's addressing the issues. He's addressing the constituents. Meanwhile, you've got Barack Obama that's in Chicago right now blaming the border crisis on President Trump. You couldn't have two more disparate views, in my opinion.
Well, you're absolutely right. And you'd almost forget the fact that Kamala Harris is the incumbent vice president of the United States, as if she is helpless to do anything for the current border crisis, where in fact it is her policies as the border czar over the last 3.5 years, going on 4 years, that have accelerated a mass human trafficking situation. She does not take this situation seriously. They denied that it was a crisis for 3 years, and only when Biden was getting killed in the polls did they say, oh, okay, you're right, it's a crisis, but, you know, excuse. And they're trying to run that same playbook now with Harris at the top of the ticket. President Trump knows exactly what to do. He established the most secure southern border in our nation's history. We've never had a better, stronger border. We've never had our Border Patrol and our ICE agents more empowered, more emboldened, and more just ready to go, enthusiastic to do their job. American communities have never been safer than they were under Trump. And so really what we have is you have a president in Trump who actually solved the problem and used authorities that had never been used before, thought creatively, and got the job done, versus Biden and Harris, who have discarded the law. They have thrown open our borders. They've surrendered our sovereignty to the cartels. It's absolutely ridiculous for Harris, Obama, et cetera, to try to claim that the Democrats are tough on border security.
But, Rob Law, last night, Joe Biden was on the stage, the sitting president, giving a speech, and he said that crime went up on Trump's watch and it went down on his watch.
Well, Joe Biden is one that has difficulty with the truth. What they're doing is they're cherry picking some numbers. 2020 was a bad year, right? It was a bad year for all of us. There was a lot of frustration, pent up suppression with all of the COVID stuff. And frankly, it was a lot of liberal states that allowed the pillaging of their cities to occur under the guise of Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd riots, et cetera, et cetera. And so there was a crime spike from that. But then what they're not telling you is that at that moment and forward, you had rogue progressive prosecutors that allowed these criminals to be released onto the streets, who then continued to commit more and more crimes. They were never prosecuted for them. And so really, at the end of the day, it is liberal policies that have enabled and encouraged the violence, not to mention the open border, which has allowed MS-13, Venezuelan gangs, all sorts of dangerous criminal elements that have made our communities more dangerous today than they were under President Trump's watch.
Yeah, and that doesn't take into account this report from the Marshall Project about police departments not reporting to the FBI database a bunch of these crimes, the ones that they do have that they can report, not the ones that they're not reporting through the prosecutors. I think it was something like 6,000 different police agencies weren't able to report some data and got kind of lost in the mix. And when you look at that, it you're right. It puts a perfect situation for Democrats to try and cherry pick the numbers and say, yeah, we're doing a lot better. But I think anybody with two eyes can look around and say, we're not doing better. If you've been to New York City, go to Broadway, go to a Broadway show. It's not safe. It's not safe. And it used to be. And I think that's clear as day, Rob Law.
Well, you're absolutely right. And actually, I just was in New York City with my family, and it was the type of thing where I had to make sure I had my wife and my kids that much closer to me as I was walking through those streets. And when you have sanctuary cities and you have rogue progressive prosecutors that don't hold criminal elements accountable, it encourages and enables more crime. And so you have a party in Kamala Harris and the Democrats that are for open borders and for the criminal enablers, and then you have President Trump and the Republicans who are offering border security and safe communities. And so, like you said, a short time ago, it really is a 180. The choice could not be clearer. It's one side or the other. It is lawlessness or it is safety and security and prosperity.
Rob Law, let everyone know how they can keep up to speed with the amazing work you're doing at the America First Policy Institute.
Well, first off, I got to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to come on your show. You can follow me on Twitter at @the_Rob Law or at the American First Policy Institute at A1 Policy. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Rob Law. I appreciate it, sir. And folks, we're coming right back. We're going to talk about new AI deepfakes where you can get anybody and turn it into a nude photo. That's kind of crazy. We're going to talk about that with an attorney coming up right now. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation, and check this out. The New York Post has a story out. Here's the headline: artificial intelligence-driven deepfake sites that undress women and girls face landmark lawsuit. The San Francisco officials filed a landmark lawsuit against a popular deepfake website that uses artificial intelligence to make naked pictures. The city attorney's office is suing 16 of the most viewed AI, quote-unquote, undressing sites, which were collectively visited more than 200 million times in just the first half of this year alone. The websites allow users to upload real images of people wearing clothes and then undresses these people and turns them into fake nude images. This sounds like an interesting novelty, but imagine wasting time. This is a quote from one person, says here. Imagine wasting time taking her out on dates when you could just use our website to get her nudes, one of the deep fake websites said, according to the lawsuit. The lawsuit said that deepfake nudes are made without consent, are used to intimidate, bully, and extort women and girls in California and across the country. This investigation has taken us into the darkest corners of the internet, so I'm absolutely horrified for the women and girls who've had to endure this exploitation, said San Francisco City Attorney David Hsu in a statement that was released. Now, I don't know anything about this. I do know that the San Francisco city attorney was once Kamala Harris, and the outcome of this is still undetermined as far as I know. But we have a guest that's going to bring us up to speed on this, that knows everything that's going on, and that is Sandra Sturgeon. She is a trial attorney. She's the author of a book called Courage to Stand, and she's our guest. Sandra Sturgeon, welcome.
Hi, Rich. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being here. This is quite the topic, not something I normally read about, and interesting. I find it very, very interesting because you can get just about anything through AI nowadays. You know, you just type it in and it gives you all sorts of stuff. And now there's people dedicating themselves to this. Give us the scoop.
Well, what we're seeing is that, you know, in the age of technology with AI, you know, the promotion of AI, what we're now facing is throughout the country. It's not only a problem here in the United States, it's an international issue, is that there are now apps that are being promoted across social platforms that essentially allow individuals kids to be exploited, teens to be exploited, women to be exploited, by simply the download of an app. You take a picture of an individual and you can call it deep fake, and you put it on a naked image, and you know, and then it's promoted across the internet. It's an issue that we have seen for years on the dark web, and such as with Taylor Swift when those images came out. But now it's available to the public to be able to just simply download an app, and it's the promotion of exploitation of pornography, and really it's a concern that there's really been little known about it until now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never heard of this. I knew like the Taylor Swift stuff, and I know that these things happen, but you know, and I know there's Photoshop and things like that. I didn't know that there were websites that one could go to, like one of the ones here, MakeNude.ai, cutting edge undress AI technology. It's just crazy to me that that's a thing. And I don't know if it's free, or if it's not free, or if it's subscription or what. But obviously somebody's making money off of it one way or another. Otherwise it wouldn't exist, no?
Oh, that's exactly right. And it's not a website. It's as simple as going in and downloading an app. And why that is such an issue is that, you know, once an image is published, you can't take that back. You know, and what is a parent to do? What is a person to do when an image, you know, a deep fake image, which your likeness of your face is taken and put on a nude image and is broadcast across, you know, the social media platform? Interesting enough, back in '96, when Facebook, Instagram, all of these social media platforms, before we even had a concept that this could possibly exist, there was a federal legislation called Communication Decency Act. And it was really to say, look, we're going to, these platforms say, yes, Congress, we're going to, Congress says, we are going to promote decency in the use of these social media platforms. And you shall not publish pornographic material across the platform. Well, what these progressive thinkers did is that they then said, Congress, but we're not going to do that. And the act says you shall not do it. But if you do, you have no liability. So the Facebook, Instagram, TikTokers, those platforms, you have as a parent, as an individual who is being exploited, you have no remedy against the mega giant platforms for which these images are being posted. So what happens is that now there's the simple download of an app from your phone can be done by your fellow students in elementary school, high school, college, going out, just somebody that you see on the street taking a picture. And what is that person supposed to do that's exploited? You have no real remedy. You can run to the police. You can, but who are you going to sue? I mean, often reform comes through litigation. But what happens? The damage is done when those photographs are downloaded and spread. They're there forever. And so, what the San Francisco city attorney is saying, there's literally huge to little states. Texas, by the way, is one of those states that has enacted and has passed legislation banning video-created images with the intent to deceive, saying you're not allowed to do it. And by the way, should you do it, you are subjected to criminal prosecution and fine. Texas and the state of California. The problem is that, as we know, is that these apps, they're pinging from all over the world. So
good luck tracking them down.
That's correct. And so you have essentially no ability from a federal standpoint for the Congress to take action because the major platforms are immune. Then you have these web developers who can conceal their identity, making it very difficult to know where in the world where they're actually based. And you have people that are being exploited. So California has filed, the city attorney from San Francisco has filed suit in reality to bring this into light, saying if we can get a default, if we can locate you and we can get a default, then then we could get orders banning you from the city of San Francisco. But it's literally a state by state, city by city action that has to be taken, not on a federal level. What a disaster that we are creating with this technology without the ability to police it. Such a disparity of authority there, right?
Yeah. Sandra Sturgeon, stand by. We're going to take a pause right here. We're coming right back with Sandra Sturgeon. I have some follow-up questions because it's an interesting problem that I think is only going to continue to grow. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5790. 5337 833 4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
There is more news in your commentary, in your analysis, than there is on the news network.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation on these AI apps that create deep fakes, which use artificial intelligence to quote unquote undress images of clothed women and girls and others. And they're being sued by the city attorney's office in San Francisco. And these are pretty popular sites that have been viewed more than 200 times in just the first half of this year. Now, our guest is a trial attorney, Sandra Sturgeon. She's the author of a book called Courage to Stand, Mastering Trial Strategies and Techniques in the Courtroom. And Sandra Sturgeon, you mentioned a couple of things right before that, create an interesting problem here. But what I find interesting is that while there's a lack of recourse for most people, isn't there also an argument for these app people that they're just utilizing First Amendment and stuff that's available publicly? If they take a picture of you in the public, I guess are you allowed to do that? Or because they're private citizens, you're not allowed to do it to them if it's somebody doing it to them? But what if it's somebody that's a public figure? Is it then allowed?
Well, that's an interesting point, and you have to look at Texas, which is really a pioneer on this issue, is that, in the penal code that they have enacted, it's not illegal to take a picture or an image of an individual in a public space. But what is illegal is taking that image and altering the image with the intent to deceive, that, like putting it on a nude body with the intent to deceive others that is the actual image of an individual. So, yeah, you're absolutely correct. You can take an image of an individual, but you can't take that image and alter it with the intent to deceive that it is an image of someone else. But the problem is that there's only 2 states in the U.S. right now that has that has statutes against such conduct. So that's why right now it's not illegal to do it. So that's why the states each state is, there's consideration going on in each state as to how it's going to be handled. And right now, those are the only 2 states that make that conduct illegal.
Interesting. So it's the wild, wild west because it's basically something that they've not had to regulate before because it's a relatively new problem, which makes sense. My hope is that Texas will lead the way here and that others will follow suit, and it'll be something that makes a lot of sense. Now, Sandra Sturgeon, in the minute or so that we have left, I want to make sure people know how to find you if they want to follow up with the work that you're doing or get a copy of your book. How do the people find you?
Well, I think most people are following me across the social media platforms with social issues such as Facebook and also at Real Sandra Sturgeon on Instagram. You can also find me on www.thespurgeonlawgroup.com. And I'm going to be posting the National Conference of State Legislators, which is that brings uniformity through the states regarding issues common to the public. They have posted a list of states and what the legislation is and what the action of the states have been. And most states have pending legislation regarding this issue And I'm going to be posting it so that the public can see and they can contact their local legislators, encouraging them to take action to enact statutes, making it a criminal act for these types of deepfake images to be posted.
Excellent. Folks, make sure you check out the website, sandraspurgeon.com. Sandra Sturgeon, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. Very insightful. You know, I thought this was going to end up being like a funny kind of segment because of how crazy the topic was, but it really was kind of serious, and it presented a problem that I wasn't aware of that was that big of a problem. So thank you for bringing it to light on our program.
Rich, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. God bless. And folks, we continue with your thoughts and comments at the top of the next hour in Open Phone America. Your calls and more coming up straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The truth is, Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than it means to his ends. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his rich friends. He killed a bipartisan immigration deal written in part by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress that would have helped secure our southern border, because he thought trying to actually solve the problem would hurt his campaign. He doesn't. Do not boo. Vote.
That, of course, is Barack Obama, 44th President of the United States, trashing El Trompito by name. And what's interesting is, you know, in politics, they typically don't refer to their opponent by anything other than my opponent, the other guy, the other side, you know. But they love to talk about Trump. Listen to this. According to the campaign, these are the mentions of Trump last night at the Democrat National Convention. Trump was mentioned 147 times. Now, the question is, how many times did they mention the economy? 27 times. How many times did they mention the border? 8 times. Crime, 6 times. Prices, 5 times. Inflation, 3 times. So you tell me, where is the priority? It's on Trump. And while I sit here and I'm, you know, making a juxtaposition between, I think Trump opens his mouth and he starts right away. He might have a nickname or a snide remark about something, but he's talking about the border, securing the border, making sure suburban women are safe in their homes because of the criminality that comes through the border. He's always talking about the issues. Because by and large, I believe that the way campaigns are run, at least on the right side of the political spectrum, are on issues. Most of the voters here are issues-based voters, that they care about the federal deficit, they care about spending, they care about the issues. Whereas it's all emotion on the other side. They just have to say a few bad things about Trump and they get people all excited, filling up these arenas so they could listen to Obama and everybody else that's been speaking this week. Really, really is sad. But anyway, I'll go over these numbers again at the top of the next hour. Folks, don't go anywhere too far. I'm coming right back. It's Rich Valdez.
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you on this Tuesday evening, and welcome. This is the hour that we call Open Phone America, the third hour of the program, a time-honored tradition here on this program. And our phone number, if you want to join us, here it is, 833-482-5337, 8334-VALDEZ. And some of the stuff that's going on tonight, again, it's not the busiest news day, but Kamala Harris has backed out of the Fox News debate. Elon Musk says he's willing to serve in a Trump administration. Pelosi sort of tacitly admits that she was involved in the ouster of Joe Biden from his candidacy for re-election. And the rapper Little John was at the Democrat National Committee, made an appearance there, where the main speaker was Barack Obama, who just wrapped up a little while ago. And, of course, his opening act was Michelle Obama. But I want you to have a listen to Little John, DJ Little John, one of my favorites. Check it out.
Georgia, how do you cast your votes?
Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to officially nominate Kamala Harris for president. Five, get loud, another round of shots. DNC, turn out for what?
And that is very cool. I'm a fan. I've always liked DJ Little John. He really, really does a great job at getting the crowd hyped up. And it's nice. I think it was nice to see that. Honestly, the Republicans had Kid Rock, who also tore it up. He did an amazing job. And they had Lee Greenwood to add a little bit of smoothness to it. And the Democrats had Patti LaBelle. So dueling entertainers there. Supporting the I guess the party of their choice, I'm going to presume. I can't imagine you just get hired for a job like that, right? I'm pretty sure you got to be on board. But I thought that was pretty cool. Little John making that surprise appearance at the DNC tonight, Tuesday night, and a lot of millennials that were there were excited. And they've tried to bring a lot of young people to the DNC convention because they brought in all these social media influencers that we talked about yesterday with their blue carpet. Instead of bringing regular media, they brought in a bunch of influencers, which is a wise strategy. It is a wise strategy because these people have the ear of a lot of young people. Now, will that equate into votes? I don't know. But it does equate into the shaping of public opinion. And that will make its way onto a poll somewhere. Now, whether the poll is accurate or not, because these people may or may not vote, I don't know if they're likely voters, registered voters, or they're just people that care about an issue. But they're there, right? So one would presume that they're going to vote and that they're politically active. So we, I think all that remains to be seen. We'll see how that goes. We can only take the polls at face value and, look at the crosstabs and look at the samples and take it from there. But interesting to see how these things are unfolding. Of course, tomorrow night, more from these folks. And, of course, your reaction to all of this. We've had some good conversation tonight. We talked about the amnesty scheme that's in the U.S. Citizenship Act that the Democrats are trying to smuggle into Congress. We've talked about the DNC. We talked about the issues with the Democrat Party with a Democrat who joined us on the show who was being critical of his own party. There's things he didn't like about the Democrat Party right now. And that was a really robust conversation that we had with Alderman Lopez from the city of Chicago, joining us live in the first hour of the program. If you missed that, go to the website, richvaldez.com, so you can check it out. But lots of things to discuss tonight. And, of course, we're going to get to your calls from all over the country, Idaho, the Philippines, Pennsylvania, Kansas, Montana, and more. I'm going to start off with our buddy Gil from Manila, Philippines, listening to us online, richvaldez.com. Gil, go right ahead, sir.
Yes, good evening, Rich. And you're a wonderful alternative rather than listening to all of the hullabaloo that's going on in Chicago. I tune it out as much as I can. But, you know, this idea that Donald Trump has about placing a tariff 15-20% on imported goods makes a lot of sense. People don't realize that the U.S. market is the place that everyone wants to sell their products. We're the most thriving economy in the world because of the way the government has not as much restrictions as they do in other places. But if you want to sell your things in the U.S., you'll eat the tariff, or most of it, just to have your products available in the U.S. marketplace. And let me give you an example, if I can. You know Frito-Lay chips, made in Plano, Texas. They're very popular here. But this country produces an awful lot of their own snack food, and they're not bad. But the Frito-Lay things that come here are competitive with the local thing because Frito-Lay wants to have a dominant place in all world markets. I mean, they're a big player on the world scene. And they eat the tariffs just to have their products available. And other manufacturers from overseas to have their products available in the U.S. marketplace will do the same thing. So it's not going to raise prices, but it will bring in a lot of revenue into the federal government to retire the deficit.
Now, what makes you think it's not going to raise prices?
Well, I've given you an example. Sure. If you want your products to be competitive, you're going to have to eat some of, or maybe all of, the tariff, because there's a certain amount of money. Just to keep their things in the U.S. marketplace in front of U.S. consumers, they'll make it up someplace else. That's how world commerce works. I've been around a long time. And I know I buy Frito-Lay products here, not as often as I used to. And they do the same thing here as they do in the United States. They get the best shelf space that they can get in the major retailers. And their people come in and stock the shelves. If you're going to buy potato chips that are made here, the manufacturer here puts them in a box, sends them to the store, and expects the store people to display their items. Well, who's going to get the best shelf space? The people who actually pay for it and utilize it to the best of their ability. You go into any retailer here of food, and you'll see Frito-Lay products prominently displayed over the local brand.
Yeah. Well, listen, I get what you're saying, Gil. And I think in theory that works. But as of 2018, I think when Trump imposed tariffs on China, and there was a bunch of tariffs, right? But a lot of them got lifted, and the ones that remained, Biden continued and actually raised. You get to this point of what the economists and the mathematicians call the point of diminishing returns. And when you get to this point, that means even if, you're selling washing machines or, I don't know, your own corn chips, right? And, or your own potato chips. And you want to compete with Frito-Lay, and Frito-Lay says, no, we want to have our stuff in the best shelf space in the Philippines. So rather than the Philippine-grown potatoes and whatever, we're going to import these things, but we're going to eat the cost of that to not pass it on to the consumer so that we remain competitive. That's fine in so much as you can do it and still turn a profit. But as you get tighter and tighter on your margin, if the tariff goes up, you reach a point where you're not only at a loss or a break-even point, but you may be at a loss, and now you're actually paying, right? You're not making money, you're paying, and I think that can happen, and likely has happened. So what happens is when the company gets in a situation like that, they no longer absorb all that cost, and they won't eat it. So what they do is they raise the price. Or they correct the price, as they would say, and this will now get passed on to you. Because if you want to buy a washing machine, let's just an example, or a Frito-Lay package or whatever it is, and there's an increased tariff on it, and it gets to that point of diminishing returns, there's no choice. If you want it, you're going to have to buy it because there's no other place to get it. It's a scarcity thing. So this is why I've never really been a big fan of tariffs in general. I don't hate them. I just don't think they're great because of that reason. It becomes a challenge. And I think a flat tax is a better alternative for the government's revenue problem and for my unwillingness or lack of desire to give the government my money. But tariffs, I think, are a good idea on China because China are the Red Chinese. They are clearly always trying to disrupt things globally, financially. So why not put tariffs on China? Why not put sanctions on Iran, right? I think there are certain players that are out there that you've just, the more pressure you can put on them economically and otherwise, you do that in order to maintain some sort of leverage against them. And despite, efforts for peace throughout, you still need to have some sort of leverage. So that's my thought with tariffs. But they worked, right? I think they worked to some degree. With the Trump administration. In theory, I don't like tariffs. They're just like a tax. And when you get to this point, what ends up happening is we, the people, end up paying the overage. And who wants to pay more for stuff, right, that we're importing? Gil, thank you, sir. I always appreciate hearing from you. Calling us from Manila in the Philippines, streaming us, richvaldez.com. And folks, we're going to take a pause right here. We're coming right back with the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, the day that you welcome me to your show is a happy day for me. And I hope that America appreciates what you're doing because you're fighting a good fight.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
This November, we can choose a brighter, a fairer, a freer future. Or we can relive the dark night of Trump's American carnage. Only one candidate will move America forward, Kamala Harris.
That is Chuck Schumer at the DNC tonight, the Democrat National Convention, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. And I always say this whenever I play a Chuck Schumer audio, but he was, I forget what he was. He was either a congressman or he was a Democrat leader in Brooklyn, and he had a campaign office a few blocks away from where I lived. I lived on Ocean Avenue and Avenue M on the corner there, above a restaurant at the time called King Ho, a Chinese restaurant, and a French dry cleaner downstairs. And he was a couple of blocks away on Kings Highway. And anyway, moral of the story is he would walk around the neighborhood. He was a great retail politician. He talked to the people. He was out there. And I remember he knew most people in the neighborhood by name. He was passing by one time my house. I was outside in front of the building riding my bike. And, my mother would always check on me through the window. And she was looking out the window, and I saw him passing by, and he was like, "Oh, hi, Louisa. How are you?" And she was like, "Oh, hi, Mr. Schumer, blah, blah, blah." And I remember him messing up my hair, like, "Oh, hey, kid, how you doing? Squirt," that type of thing. And I was like, what a pendejo this guy is, He's going to come here and mess up my hair. But that's my my throwback memory of Chuck Schumer when I was a kid, when he was, still on the come up. Anyway, he says that we have a choice to make in November, but he says it in that scary voice that he used when he was threatening the Supreme Court justices and whatnot. And I think Americans are going to make their choice. Of course, we all have to push for our preferred winning team, and I think that's the only way to win. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. Let me go to Geronimo calling us from Old Orchard Beach, Maine, WLOB. Geronimo, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Yes, hi. I heard you mention Democrats that are disenchanted with...
put the phone closer to your mouth because I can barely hear you.
I got you. You mentioned Democrats that are disenchanted.
Yes.
With the Democrat Party, and my party needs to be taken to the woodshed. There was a Maryland district attorney praising Kamala for her back on track program, which she says is now the national standard, and that Kamala keeps us safe. Well, the opposite is true. Peter Schweitzer's book, Profiles in Corruption, has a chapter on Kamala full of damning information, one of which is her own Willie Horton episode. There was an illegal alien who had a long criminal record of violent crimes. He committed one, was thrown in jail. She single-handedly released him, and he immediately committed a brutal rape and murder of a young woman. And her mother was quoted in the book as asking, why did Kamala release him from jail back out onto the street? She knew he was an illegal alien with a criminal record. If she had deported him, our beloved daughter would still be alive. Her murder is completely on Kamala Harris's hands.
Mm. It's so unfortunate. And Geronimo, I thank you for sharing that. Because I think there's a lot of people that are upset with her. And it's remarkable that they're focused on this aspect of her career, right? This is a woman that's literally the sitting vice president of the United States that thinks that things are so fantastic, yet she's not running as Vice President Harris. I get to be acting president every now and again. No, you would think that she's running as a former prosecutor. I'm the district attorney of San Francisco or the attorney general of California. That's all you seem to hear in her record. Why don't we use her vice presidential record? There's a question. Anyway, folks, stick around. We're coming right back. The rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I am thrilled to reaffirm Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee for President of the United States.
All right, folks, that is the official nomination of Kamala Harris as President of the United States. You heard it at the DNC. Kamala Harris, the vice president, weighs in on that nomination through a simulcast that they conducted at the DNC. Listen to this.
The delegates at the Democratic National
motion. Well, they just completed their roll call. And they have nominated Coach Walz and me to be the next Vice President and President of the United States of America.
And she did not stop there. She went on to talk about how her husband was going to take the stage and a couple of other points. Listen to this.
We are so honored to be your nominees. This is a people-powered campaign, and together we will chart a new way forward. A future for freedom, opportunity, of optimism, and faith. So to everyone in Chicago and across America, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And you're going to hear from our wonderful second gentleman shortly. I'll see you in 2 days, Chicago.
Now, of course, she's referring to her official acceptance speech because that one was not. And a lot of people wondering, why did she speak for a minute and a half last night? Why did she speak for a couple of minutes tonight? Why does she continue to address the crowd, breaking and bucking tradition? I don't know. And again, I'm not necessarily complaining. I'm glad we've got audio of Kamala 2 nights in a row, right? That's fantastic in my business. But just curious. I'm curious to know why she's doing that. I guess some would say she's a pioneering, enterprising person that, doesn't follow the rules and figures out a way around them. And it seems that way, right? It seems exactly that way. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I do know I'm glad we got to hear a little bit of Kamala Harris. And I do want to continue with your phone calls. The phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Let us go to Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Frank, go right ahead.
All right. Yeah, the People's Republic of the Communist State of California is really in a debt right now with almost 900.
Frank, you're trailing off. Are you talking into the phone?
Am I better now?
It sounds a little low.
Better. Oh, hold on.
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
1 second. There. Yeah, yep. I'm just saying that the U.S. debt clock shows California at almost $900 billion in the hole. And this people's electric car mandate, how is that going to work? Is it going to be like a Flintstones car where you have to pedal it by foot when it doesn't work on the freeway? It's a joke.
Right. Yeah, well,
I don't know what to say.
This is part of the issue, right? A lot of people are definitely upset about electric vehicles and what they mean for the economy, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work for everybody. So I think you raised a good point, Frank. Now, what do you think about Kamala Harris? How'd she do tonight with the DNC?
I think she failed miserably. I think Trump it'll be a landslide. This is just a little sideshow to make it look like it's all hyped up. But no, the thrill is gone in about 2 days anymore. And of course, their National Guard will have joysticks to make it look like it's kinder and gentler. Oh my God! No, I don't trust her. No, she can just take a hike. She's not going to be in the White House much longer. All right.
Yeah, I hope so. From your lips to God's ears. Frank in Evergreen, Montana, thank you for your call. I see more calls coming in right now. We're going to continue. Let's go to Paul calling from Boise, Idaho, KBFI. Paul, go right ahead, sir.
Thanks for taking my call there, Rich.
Yes, sir.
You know, I guess maybe I was a little bit naive, but I really didn't know that the Obamas were rock stars in the eyes of the Democrats.
Oh, I
You know
think
what
they
I'm
love him.
saying?
He's probably the most popular president besides Clinton.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I had no idea that the both of them, not just him, the president, but his wife.
Yeah, and honestly, I think in some circles she might be more popular than he is.
You might be right there, but you know, they're still together, put together as far as their love to buy the Democrat Party. They're still nowhere like what we have with El Trumpito. He's numero uno as far as I'm concerned, and he always will be. He did what he could do with being attacked by the Dems in 2 different ways, and also being impeached twice with false accusations, as it were. And you know, they want to talk about the amount of money that he spent while he was in office. Well, he was left with a military that needed every penny that they could get and spend on it. And you know, I'm surprised that they never mentioned that. You know, we were way behind the Chinese and falling behind even faster. And the money that he spent to beef up the military really helped. And we find ourselves in the same position again because for the last 3.5 years, they haven't spent anything on the military. They've made it some kind of woke.
Their whole plan is to defund the military budget so they can have their slush funds for different things.
Exactly. And they do that with the police, and that really disturbs me. That's why, you know, my plans of going to visit New York and see a little bit of sights that I saw 40 years ago I'd like to see again before I pass on to the other side. And if there's not going to be cops around, you're not going to find me around. You know, I don't want to become another statistic. So
no, I get
it. You know, they with Trumpito in there, I think he's going to spend the money the way it needs to be spent. And if it gets spent, then so be it. But we're going to have safer streets. There's going to be some people that are going to spend time in jail that deserve it, that break the law, and not give them a free pass. And, you know, there's a lot of things that we're not talking about with Trump. You know, we harp on the fact that he talks too much in his rallies or whatever. And the fact remains is the guy's just exactly what we need, and we got him. So I'm all for I'm all for that.
Yeah, amen. Me too. Listen, I think we have to seize the day, right? Carpe diem. We've got to take advantage of the opportunity while we have it. We haven't seen a candidate like Trump, I think, in a very, very long time. And we want to make sure we do the right thing here. And it, you know, not easy, right? It's not easy because even if you're a weak candidate, like I believe Kamala Harris is a weak candidate, but she's not alone, right? Trump's not just running against a weak candidate. He's running against an entire machine. The Democrats within the media, the left within the media, the left within the government. There's so many nuances to this terrain for us to understand. And Trump, you know, knows a lot of them, but he's also Trump. And, you know, we're people. It's like me. You know, I know that my girlfriend, now ex-girlfriend, is sensitive about certain things, but sometimes it slips your mind. You're too focused on being pissed off in the moment. And the next thing you know, voila, you say something stupid that gets you in the doghouse one way or another. So, you know, it's thinking or acting or speaking selfishly and one-sided, if you will. And we've got to be smart. And I think Trump is smart, and he just needs some message discipline, which I think he has. Every clip that we've got tonight, he's talking about the issues and the issues. And I think that's where he's got to stay. He keeps beating the drum of the issues. It's going to be very difficult to argue against him because the issues are truly on our side. Paul in Boise, Idaho, thank you for the call. KBFI, great station. Folks are coming right back. The rest of your calls and more. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Zanesville, Ohio, Shanksville, Pennsylvania, Evergreen, Montana. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5790. 5337 833 4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
It's up to us to remember what Kamala's mother told her. Don't just sit around and complain, do something. So if they lie about her, and they will, we've got to do something. If we see a bad poll, and we will, we got to put down that phone and do something. If we start feeling tired, if we start feeling that dread creeping back in, we got to pick ourselves up, throw water on our face, and what?
Time to do something indeed. And Michelle Obama, that's Michelle Obama, by the way, Chicago's own, at the DNC earlier tonight. She didn't stop there. She went on to say that we cannot cheat our way out of this. Listen to this one.
We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. If we bankrupt a business or choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance.
Now, who is she talking about, right? I want to know who Michelle Obama is talking about. Is she talking about a particular type of people? Is she talking about Donald Trump, specifically saying that if he didn't do well in the business, he gets a third, fourth, and whatever amount of times? I don't know who she's talking about. But I can tell you, I've had a couple of businesses. Some did better than others. And I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth by any means at all. So I don't know what she's talking about, but it seems like she's making it out to be like it's somehow wrong or bad to participate in the American dream. At least that's what I'm hearing. Let's continue. Let's play it again.
We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. If we bankrupt a business or choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance.
Now, I wonder, why doesn't she get a second, third, or fourth chance? Is it because of a racial issue? Is it because she's a Democrat? I honestly, this is going over my head, but let's continue.
Don't go our way. We don't have the luxury of whining or cheating others to get further ahead. No. We don't get to change the rules so we always win. If we see a mountain in front of us, we don't expect there to be an escalator waiting to take us to the top. No.
She said, we don't get to change the rules to make sure we always win. Yet, here we have the President of the United States, Joe Biden. 14 million people voted for him in a primary, and they changed the rules. To make sure that they won. They said, look, you can't be the candidate anymore, guy. Listen, and we know you're president and everything, but you can't be the guy. Why? Well, because we need to make sure we win. So no, when they say that they can't cheat in order to win, that they can't change the rules in order to win, this is so rich to me. It's so hypocritical. Anyway, let's go to a call. I want to go, let's see. Where did I leave off? Sue, Shranksville, Pennsylvania, WXDE. Go right ahead.
Hey, so Rich, I've been watching on my phone, on YouTube tonight, although I have been falling asleep too. But I did see most of Barack Obama's speech, and I got to tell you something. That guy can give a speech. Yeah. Now, I am not a fan of this, but if Kamala Harris could speak like him, we would have a problem.
Right.
He's able to say a lot of really nice things without really committing himself to doing or not doing anything. It was artful.
Yeah,
Well, he was
is.
elected.
He's a good speaker. And I mean, I have seen instances of the teleprompter going out and him kind of getting stuck, but he is a good speaker and he is a very charismatic guy, no question. And somebody that mentioned the similar point that you're making was a Democrat that we had on in the top of the hour number one of the show, Alderman Raymond Lopez from Chicago, a Democrat who said that, this woman is no Barack Obama. And I have to agree with both of you. I think that's an excellent point. She's not. She doesn't have that ability. But she does have the same ability to be as divisive and as, I'm going to use the word annoying, but that's not really the right word, even though it annoys me. This appeal to the senses, this appeal to the negative emotions that dwell within people, this appeal to grievance. She has that ability, and she does it often. And it may be her only way to do it. I mean, just like AOC, just like Che Guevara, they all did the same thing, Fidel Castro. It's always about painting this picture of the oppressor versus the oppressed, and she knows how to do it. And she's effective at it. Doesn't mean that she'll be able to beat Trump with that, but it does make it effective with an electorate that has been told every day for since 2015 that Donald Trump is Satan incarnate. So that's what we're up against, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. But I don't think it's the end of the world. Anyway, thank you, Sue. I got to take a quick pause right here. We're coming right back. Rich Valdez, don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, folks, it's the speed round, which means keep it very, very brief. Let's go to Aaron in Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Aaron, quickly, what do you think of Kamala Harris this evening?
Hello?
All right, Aaron, thank you for your call. Let us continue. Leon, Las Cruces, New Mexico, KOVE. Go right ahead. What is your thought on Democrats tonight?
The Democrats want to tear down generational businesses that have been around for years because of their families, and they want to tear them down.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is they're not only tearing down generationally owned family businesses, but they're also, with increasing the tax rate from 21% to 28%, they're going to bring down a whole lot of different corporations. So I think you're onto something. Leon in Las Cruces, New Mexico, KOVE. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the call. Let us continue. I want to go to, I don't know if it's Brute or Brute in New York, WFAS, my flagship station. Go right ahead.
No, it's Brute. It's not Broody. Okay,
Perfect.
I just want to say this real quick, Rich. I was a former printer. I went to the polling stations 3 times to vote, and all 3 times they only provide blue pens. Well, me being a printer, I know well that blue ink is erasable ink. So it could be another method that they are using right under our noses.
Could be. Wouldn't surprise me that there's some funny business going on. Chicanery is very popular with our friends on the left. Although I've never used a pen to vote. I've always used, some sort of voting machine. I never cast a provisional ballot in my life. Thankfully, I've always gone to the right polling location. Pat in Sedona, Charles in Minneapolis, Jason in Myrtle Beach, Paul in Zanesville, Joe in Salem. Big shout out to KSAR, WHIZ, WRNN, and everybody streaming online at richvaldez.com. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. Hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez.